All eyes are on the president at the NATO summit, and we'll get into what he's had to say about Ukraine in a moment. But let's just play one of the most awkward moments I've ever seen between two leaders. But this is between Joe Biden and UK's new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer.
Well, welcome. And it's good that we had a long conversation on the phone. When you want, give me your hand there, pal. And we're the best of allies, maybe in the whole world. And we really need to continue to cooperate, and a lot we can talk about.
I don't understand, because aren't those moments rehearsed? Handshakes, they know the cameras are on them. It's so uncomfortable.
It was very uncomfortable. But listen, let's be clear about this, right? Joe Biden is not running for the presidency. He doesn't know it at the minute. His wife doesn't know it. But he will not be the Democratic Party candidate for the presidency. You can say that right now. This guy cannot run again. He will not run again. If he runs and gets elected, he's president till the 20th of January 2029. That's when he would leave office. Early 2029, which is preposterous in anyone's language. This guy's not running, okay? He doesn't know it yet, but I'm telling him from Melbourne, Australia, he will have to withdraw. The terrible stain on the Democratic Party is that it looks like it's going to take an actor from Hollywood, who everyone hates, not necessarily Clooney, but they hate actors in Hollywood. Yeah. It's going to take a Hollywood actor to say to the Democratic Party, for goodness sake, wake up. You can't have this old man running for president. He can't put two words together. And as we know, Clooney was at that fundraiser recently. He wrote about that in his article. And the most devastating thing that Clooney said in his article was, every senator, Democratic senator, and every Democratic member of the House of Reps I speak to privately agrees that Biden should withdraw, but none of them will say publicly. So, look, no, this guy's not running, okay? He's withdrawing at or before the Democratic convention on August 19, and Kamala Harris will be the Democratic nominee, Gab.
So George Clooney has essentially just confirmed what we all were thinking, that we have been lied to, that essentially these conversations are being held behind closed doors, but then publicly everyone comes out and pretends that Joe Biden is actually, he's okay. So if it's not going to be Joe Biden, who will it be?
Well, I think it has to be Harris. The only person that could beat Harris on the floor, I think, of a primary would be Michelle Obama. But I don't think she's shown any inclination to run. Hillary Clinton is too long ago, and it can't be Gavin Newsom. I mean, don't forget, Harris is the ranking vice president. She is the number 2 person in the Democratic Party. How would you argue about it not being her? It would be very, very hard. And, of course, the Democratic delegates are basically, a majority of them are from minority groups and the hard left. So they control the floor of council. They're going to vote for Harris, unless it was Michelle Obama, which I don't think it'll be. So it'll be Harris. She'll be beaten by Trump.
So what's worse, Kamala Harris or Joe Biden?
Well, I think Biden's worse because everyone knows that he's not up to the job. I mean, when I say everybody, it took America last Friday week to realise this guy's not up to the job. I mean, if you've been watching Fox News in America or Sky News in Australia, you would have known 3 or 4 years ago that Sean Hannity's been running this stuff for years. You would know that Biden was not up to the job, right? It took until that debate last Friday week for the majority of the American public to be told this guy's not the full quid, because they have been lied to by the hard left press. So the other point about this is, if they didn't know Joe Biden was a brick short of a full load, what do people in America know about Kamala Harris? I would suspect most people in America, if you watch Fox News in America, you know that she's hopeless and a DEI pick. But if you didn't watch Fox in America or Sky in Australia, would you know that Harris was totally unqualified? I would suspect that most Americans have got no idea, not much about Kamala Harris. And, of course, if he resigns the presidency, which he should do, and let her become the president and go to the election as the president, basically she starts again with a blank sheet of paper. The American public for the first time will say, oh, we've got a new president or a new candidate. What's she like? Most of them won't know much about it. If they didn't know Biden was non-compass, why would they know that she was hopeless unless they've been watching Fox News?
Fair point. OK, let's look at what Joe Biden has been saying at the NATO summit in Washington. Here are his comments on Ukraine.
Make no mistake. Ukraine can and will stop Putin.
Is he right? Ukraine can and will stop Putin?
Yes, of course. I mean, the Western world cannot afford Russia to invade the Ukraine and win. So you got to go back to Trump, by the way. I mean, Trump doesn't get a lot of credit. But the truth of the matter is, if Trump hadn't told his European allies to stump up some more cash for NATO, Ukraine would be in a much worse than position than it is now. I mean, the fact that they put up more money for defence and their own domestic budgets means they've had a capacity to help the Ukraine. So give him credit for that. But the Western world can't afford the Ukraine to fall to the Russians, and it won't. And the West have made that clear, and they're going to keep supporting the Ukraine. I would suspect that what will happen is when Trump comes in, he will probably broker some deal with Putin and Zelensky, which involves Russia keeping some of, but not all of the territory they've claimed, and calling it quits. I mean, Putin will be looking for an out too. I mean, don't forget, Putin's under a huge amount of domestic pressure from people who are seeing their sons and daughters and jailbirds slaughtered on the Ukrainian-Russian border. He's under pressure too. It's not just Zelensky. Putin will be looking for out at some stage, and Trump may provide that for him.
Finally, Michael Kroger, let's look at what's happening in France. Riots erupted in Paris after France's left defeated the right in an unexpected election victory. Now, this footage shows bonfires burning in the streets, police in riot gear clashing with demonstrators and using tear gas to disperse rioters. They're confronting scenes. Can I get your reaction to the election result and also what's playing out on the streets of Paris?
Well, it's typical of the left. They take to the streets to complain about anything, particularly in France. And I think a lot of these left-wing demonstrators, these hard left extremists, have lost their social license to demonstrate years ago. I mean, you look at the violence, you look at the setting fire to cars and buildings, etc., throwing rocks at the police, etc. That's not part of a legitimate protest in a Western democracy, but the left use demonstrations worldwide to intimidate people, and they are intimidated by left-wing demonstrations. So that's what the left are doing. What happened in the election result? They have a similar voting system to that in Britain, which is effectively a first-past-the-post system. And, in about 220 constituency, the centre and the left candidates agreed on having one candidate against the National Rally, and in the end they ended up with a majority, unlike what happened in Britain, where, of course, Nigel Farage's party wouldn't stand down as they did in 2019, contested against the Conservatives, split the right-wing vote, and cost the Conservatives 70 or 80 seats, and Labor won easily. So that's basically what happened in France. Let's see what happens. I would think Le Pen will only get stronger, because I think the new government in France is going to be a disaster. They pick a new Prime Minister Thursday week. Let's see what happens then.
Okay, Michael Kroger, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour.
Thanks, Gab.